Elena Martinez's fingers hesitated over the grand piano keys, doubt flickering across her features as she surveyed the imposing instrument that dominated the music room. She wasn't supposed to be here, among the polished mahogany and gilt-framed portraits of a family whose floors she was hired to clean, not entertain. Yet the piano called to her with an almost physical pull, a siren song of memory and longing for the life she'd left behind. The Townsend estate sprawled across 5 acres of manicured gardens and architectural excess, a monument to wealth that stood in stark contrast to the modest apartment Elena shared with her grandmother in the city's east side. 3 weeks into her employment as part of the cleaning staff, she had maintained professional distance and invisibility, head down, voice quiet, presence minimal, as she moved through rooms worth more than she would earn in a decade. But today, with the family supposedly away at their lake house, and most of the staff given unexpected leave, the silent mansion and its neglected piano proved too tempting. Just one piece, she promised herself. One brief indulgence before returning to the carefully constructed boundaries of her precarious employment. When the blind girl entered the music room, guided by muscle memory and the subtle echoes of Elena's single exploratory chord, neither realized that moment would irrevocably alter both their lives. And neither knew that Maverick Townsend, president of the notorious Black Mountain chapter of the Hells Angels, was silently watching from the shadowed doorway, witnessing the connection forming between his sheltered daughter and the maid, with secrets hidden beneath her calloused hands. If you love forbidden love stories, subscribe and don't miss the next one. "Don't stop," the girl said, her voice startling Elena from her reverie. "Please, it's been so long since anyone played here." Elena's hands jerked away from the keys, rising automatically as if caught committing a crime. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. I'll go back to—" "You're one of the maids," the girl interrupted, head tilted slightly as she processed Elena's voice. "New, I think. I haven't heard you before." "Elena Martinez," she confirmed, already gathering her cleaning supplies. "I apologize for the intrusion, Miss Townsend. It won't happen again." "Lily," the girl corrected. "Just Lily, please." She moved with surprising confidence toward the piano bench, one hand trailing along the polished wood for guidance. "And it's not an intrusion if I'm asking you to continue." Elena hesitated, caught between professional self-preservation and something in the blind girl's expression, a loneliness that resonated with her own. Lily appeared about 16, with delicate features and long blonde hair pulled back in a simple braid. Her unseeing eyes, a striking pale blue, stared somewhere past Elena's shoulder. "Your parents wouldn't approve," Elena said carefully. "I'm here to clean, not perform." A sad smile flickered across Lily's face. "My mother died 3 years ago. She was the musician." Her fingers brushed the piano's edge with familiar reverence. "And my father. He's rarely home enough to notice what happens here." The wistfulness in her tone made Elena's resistance waver. Before she could formulate another objection, Lily settled onto the far end of the bench, patting the space beside her in invitation. "Just one song," the girl requested. "Then you can go back to being invisible, if that's what you prefer." The perceptiveness of the statement, cutting straight to the heart of Elena's carefully maintained professional facade, caught her off guard. Without fully intending to, she found herself seated at the piano again, posture automatically adjusting to the proper form ingrained through years of training. "What would you like to hear?" she asked, surrender complete. "Something that matters to you," Lily replied. "Something real." Elena's hands hovered over the keys, considering and discarding options. Finally, she began the opening notes of Debussy's Clair de Lune, the piece her mother had taught her first, before conservatory training and competition circuits, before scholarships and promising futures, before the accident that had shattered everything. The music flowed from muscle memory, emotion bleeding through technical precision as the familiar melody filled the cavernous room. Elena closed her eyes, momentarily forgetting her surroundings as she surrendered to the piece that had once defined her identity before she'd locked that part of herself away. She was so absorbed that she didn't notice the large figure stepping silently into the room from the shadows of the doorway. Didn't see the imposing man, dressed incongruously in worn jeans and a leather cut adorned with the infamous skull and wings insignia of the Black Mountain Hell's Angels, who stood transfixed by the sight of his daughter's rapt expression as the music washed over her. Only when the final notes faded did Elena open her eyes to find Lily with silent tears streaming down her face. And only then did she register the weight of another presence in the room. Maverick Townsend stood with arms crossed over his broad chest, steel-gray eyes assessing the unauthorized performance with unreadable intensity. His physical presence dominated the space, 6'3" of barely restrained power, with the weathered features of a man who commanded respect through means Elena didn't want to contemplate. "Mr. Townsend," she managed, rising so quickly she nearly toppled the bench. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were—" the staff said. "Dad?" Lily's head turned toward the doorway, surprise evident in her expression. "You're home early." "Change of plans," he replied, his deep voice controlled but not unkind as he addressed his daughter. His gaze, however, remained fixed on Elena with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. Meeting finished sooner than expected. Elena gathered her cleaning supplies with trembling hands, mentally calculating the speed with which she could clear out her small employee quarters before formal termination. "I'll get back to work, sir. My apologies for the disruption." "That was Debussy," he said, the observation freezing her retreat. "My wife's favorite. Catherine played it often before she got sick." The personal detail, offered without explanation or obvious purpose, hung in the air between them. Elena remained motionless, unsure how to respond to this unexpected direction. "It was beautiful," Lily interjected into the tense silence. "Elena plays like she was born to it." Something shifted in Maverick's expression at his daughter's words, a softening almost imperceptible beneath his intimidating exterior. "You've had formal training," he stated, not a question, but an assessment. Elena nodded cautiously. "Yes, sir. Conservatory education, before I—" She stopped herself, unwilling to offer personal history to a man who could end her employment with a single word. "Before what?" Lily prompted, genuinely curious. "Before priorities changed," Elena finished diplomatically. Maverick continued his assessment, gaze traveling from her face to her hands and back again, as if reconciling the maid's uniform with the undeniable evidence of classical training he'd just witnessed. Whatever conclusion he reached remained hidden behind his composed exterior. "Lily has been without a music teacher since her last one moved away," he said finally. "Mrs. Reynolds tells me the new agency candidates have been inadequate." Elena's confusion must have shown on her face because he elaborated. "I'm offering you a position, teaching my daughter, in addition to your current duties, with appropriate compensation adjustments." The unexpected proposition rendered Elena momentarily speechless. She looked from father to daughter, trying to process the abrupt shift from feared termination to employment expansion. "But I'm just," she began, "someone who plays Debussy with the technical precision and emotional depth it deserves." He interrupted. "Your employment category is less relevant than your obvious qualification." Lily's expression had brightened with unmistakable hope, her hand reaching slightly in Elena's direction. "Please say yes," she urged. "The house needs music again." Caught between Lily's transparent longing and Maverick's inscrutable intensity, Elena found her carefully constructed boundaries crumbling. The piano had been her deliberate sacrifice, the price paid for survival after everything collapsed. Returning to it now, even as a teacher rather than performer, meant reopening wounds she'd worked hard to cauterize. Yet something in Lily's isolated existence called to her, perhaps recognizing a parallel loss despite their vastly different circumstances. And something in Maverick Townsend's unexpected offer suggested complexities beyond the fearsome reputation that preceded him. "I would need a proper schedule," she found herself saying, "to balance the cleaning duties with structured lessons. Mrs. Reynolds handles staff scheduling, Maverick replied with a single nod. "She'll make the necessary arrangements." Decision made, agreement reached, with the same efficient finality that reportedly characterized his leadership of the Black Mountain chapter. No room for negotiation or second thoughts. As Elena left the music room that afternoon, dismissed with a gesture as Maverick moved to his daughter's side, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped onto a path far more complex than a simple employment expansion. The piano, silent for 3 years since Catherine Townsend's death, would sound again through her hands. What she couldn't know was how that music would eventually bridge worlds that never should have connected. The classical pianist turned maid, the blind girl hungry for beauty, and the Hells Angels president whose carefully separated realities were about to collide with consequences none of them could anticipate. By the time Elena Martinez understood what she'd truly agreed to that afternoon, it would be too late for any of them to turn back. The first lesson revealed more than either expected. Elena arrived at the music room precisely at 10 o'clock Saturday morning to find Lily already seated at the piano, fingers tracing the keys without pressing them, face turned expectantly toward the door. "How did you know I was here?" Elena asked, placing her carefully organized lesson materials on the side table. "I didn't make a sound." "Perfume," Lily replied with a small smile. "Subtle but distinctive. Jasmine and something else I can't quite identify." "Bergamot," Elena supplied, impressed by the girl's sensory acuity. "It was my mother's signature scent." The personal disclosure slipped out before Elena's usual filters could catch it. A small but significant crack in the professional facade she'd maintained with all employers since circumstances had forced her career change. "Was?" Lily caught the past tense immediately. "She passed away 6 years ago," Elena answered, redirecting the conversation before further questions could follow. "Shall we begin with an assessment of your current abilities?" Lily's hand settled into proper position with practiced ease, suggesting previous training. "Mom started teaching me when I was 4. We continued until she couldn't anymore." The shadow of shared loss passed between them, a bridge of understanding that transcended their different stations. Elena recognized the grief beneath Lily's composed exterior, perhaps more clearly than most could, having weathered her own storm of loss and reinvention. "Play something you remember well," Elena instructed gently. "Whatever feels most comfortable." What followed astonished her. Lily's rendition of Mozart's Piano Sonata No. 16 in C, major flowed with technical precision that belied both her age and her visual impairment. Though lacking some emotional nuance, her fingerwork and timing demonstrated years of dedicated practice, preserved through muscle memory. "That was exceptional," Elena said when the piece concluded. "Your foundation is incredibly strong." Lily ducked her head slightly, unused to praise. "I've maintained what I could on my own, but it's not the same without proper guidance." "Where did your previous instructor leave off in your curriculum?" "Bach's 2-part inventions. We had started number 8 before Mr. Harrington relocated." Elena nodded, mentally cataloging appropriate next steps. "We'll resume there then, but first, let's work on strengthening your emotional connection to the pieces. Technical precision is only half the journey." The lesson progressed naturally, with Lily proving an eager and responsive student. Elena found herself drawing on teaching techniques her own mentors had used, adapting them for a student who relied on auditory and tactile learning rather than visual demonstration. So absorbed were they in the work that neither noticed Maverick Townsend's arrival until his deep voice broke their concentration. "Progress report?" Elena startled, turning to find him leaning against the doorframe, an imposingly casual stance that somehow claimed ownership of the space without explicit declaration. Unlike their first encounter, today he wore a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing intricate tattoos that disappeared beneath the fabric. The absence of his leather cut did little to diminish his commanding presence. "Dad?" Lily's face brightened. "You should hear what Elena's teaching me about emotional interpretation. It's completely changing how I approach Mozart." Something softened in Maverick's expression as he regarded his daughter. a transformation so subtle Elena might have missed it had she not been studying him carefully. "Sounds like money well spent, then," he replied, attention shifting back to Elena with analytical assessment. "Mrs. Reynolds mentioned you've rearranged your cleaning schedule to accommodate these lessons." "Yes, sir," Elena confirmed. "I've taken on evening shifts for the West Wing to free up morning hours for Lily's instruction." "That's a significant adjustment. Music education requires consistent scheduling for optimal progress," she explained, professional composure masking her discomfort under his scrutiny. "Particularly for a student of Lily's caliber." His eyebrow raised slightly at this last comment. "You believe she has talent worth developing?" "Exceptional talent," Elena corrected without hesitation. "With proper guidance, Lily could easily qualify for conservatory admission in 2 years." "Conservatory?" Lily repeated, surprise and something like longing coloring her voice. "But I never thought, because of my eyes." "Your blindness presents challenges but not limitations," Elena said firmly. "Several renowned pianists have performed professionally without sight. The technical foundations are already evident in your playing." Maverick watched this exchange with unreadable intensity, his focus shifting between his daughter's hopeful expression and Elena's confident assessment. Whatever calculations occurred behind his composed exterior remained private. But his next question caught Elena off guard. "You attended Westmore Conservatory," he stated, rather than asked. "Graduated with honors before joining the Regional Symphony as first-seat pianist." The accurate recitation of her past, information she had deliberately omitted from her employment application, sent a chill through Elena. "You've been investigating me." "Background checks are standard for anyone working closely with my daughter," he replied without apology. "Though your conservatory credentials weren't mentioned in your employment history, they weren't relevant to a housekeeping position," Elena countered, discomfort mounting at having her carefully compartmentalized past exposed. "And now? Now they're relevant to my teaching capacity," she acknowledged. "But my previous performance career isn't." Lily's head tilted with sudden interest. "You were a professional pianist? First seat with a symphony." Before Elena could formulate a response that wouldn't invite further questions, Maverick intervened. "Your teacher's past achievements matter less than her current ability to advance your education, Lily." The deflection surprised Elena, an unexpected consideration from a man whose reputation suggested little concern for others' comfort. Their eyes met briefly, something like understanding passing between them despite their vastly different worlds. "I should let you continue," Maverick said, straightening from his relaxed posture against the doorframe. "Lily, I'll be in my study if you need anything." "Actually, we've covered significant ground for one session," Elena interjected, checking her watch. "Cognitive retention improves with shorter, focused lessons rather than extended practice, particularly when establishing new interpretive approaches." Lily's disappointed expression suggested she would have happily continued for hours, but she nodded in acceptance of her teacher's professional judgment. "Same time Monday?" "With additional practice parameters in between," Elena confirmed, gathering her materials. 20 minutes, 3 times daily, focusing on the emotional mapping we discussed. As she prepared to leave, Maverick's voice stopped her. "Ms. Martinez, a word before you go." The request, delivered with the subtle inflection that transformed it into a command, sent another tremor of unease through Elena. She followed him into the hallway, maintaining professional distance as they moved beyond Lily's exceptional hearing. "You didn't mention your performance background during your initial employment," he observed once they were alone, voice neutral rather than accusatory. "As I said, it wasn't relevant to cleaning services," Elena replied carefully. "The accident that ended your career, however, might have been relevant to overall safety protocols on the property." The direct reference to her most carefully guarded secret locked Elena's breath in her lungs. How much did he know? How deeply had his investigation penetrated the barriers she'd constructed between past and present? "I'm fully capable of performing all required duties," she managed, voice steadier than her racing pulse would suggest. "I don't doubt your capability, Ms. Martinez." His assessment carried the weight of someone accustomed to evaluating both strength and weakness with precision. "I'm questioning your transparency." The implicit challenge hung between them, her deliberate omissions against his unexpected knowledge. For a moment, Elena considered retreat, the practiced self-preservation that had guided her decisions since the accident. But something in his direct approach demanded equal honesty. "Some histories are too painful to volunteer," she finally said. "But they don't prevent me from being an excellent teacher for your daughter." Their gazes locked, mutual assessment occurring across the gulf of their disparate backgrounds. Whatever Maverick saw in her unwavering stance appeared to satisfy some internal metric, as he gave a single, decisive nod. "Agreed," he said simply. "Lily responds to you in ways she hasn't with previous instructors. That result matters more than complete disclosure of painful histories. The unexpected alliance, acknowledging shared priorities regarding Lily's development despite their obvious differences, shifted something fundamental in their tentative professional relationship. Not trust, not yet, but perhaps a mutual recognition of boundaries worth respecting." As Elena returned to her scheduled cleaning duties, the weight of Maverick Townsend's background investigation followed her through the mansion's immaculate hallways. The carefully constructed walls between her past and present had begun to crack, hairline fractures threatening the separation she had maintained at significant personal cost. What remained unclear was whether those cracks represented danger or unexpected opportunity in a household ruled by a man whose own life appeared defined by similar compartmentalization. The legitimate businessman versus the Hells Angels president, the fearsome outlaw versus the devoted father. Only time would reveal which version of Maverick Townsend would ultimately determine her fate. 3 weeks of lessons transformed the atmosphere of the Townsend mansion. Music once again flowed through its corridors. Lily's practiced scales, her increasingly confident interpretations, and occasionally, when student became insistent teacher, Elena's own reluctant demonstrations that betrayed mastery she preferred to keep hidden. The strictly professional boundaries Elena had intended to maintain eroded gradually through Lily's persistent curiosity and genuine warmth. The girl's questions, about technique, about musical history, about Elena herself, created small breaches in carefully constructed defenses. "Why did you stop performing?" Lily asked during their 4th lesson, hands paused above the keys during a discussion of emotional interpretation. "You play with such depth. The symphony must have treasured you." Elena's fingers stilled on the demonstration she'd been providing. "That's not relevant to your education, Lily." "It is, though," the girl insisted with surprising perception. "You teach that authentic emotion comes from lived experience. Your interpretation of Chopin's nocturnes carries grief I recognize, similar to how I played after Mom died." The observation, uncomfortably accurate, left Elena momentarily speechless. At 16, Lily possessed emotional intelligence beyond her years, perhaps heightened by her reliance on non-visual cues. "There was an accident," Elena finally admitted, offering the minimum truth. "It affected my performance capabilities." "But you still play beautifully," Lily persisted. "Better than any instructor I've had." "Technical proficiency isn't enough for professional standards," Elena explained, redirecting the conversation. "Now, shall we continue with your Bach?" Though Lily allowed the deflection, Elena sensed the girl's continued curiosity. Questions temporarily surrendered rather than abandoned. Their relationship was evolving beyond instructor-student into something more complex, despite Elena's determination to maintain professional distance. This evolution extended beyond the music room. Staff who had initially regarded Elena with the polite indifference reserved for newcomers now treated her with subtle deference. Her dual role as both maid and music teacher creating an undefined status that challenged the household hierarchy. Mrs. Reynolds, the imposing housekeeper who managed the domestic staff with military precision, addressed this ambiguity directly one afternoon as Elena completed her cleaning rotation. "Mr. Townsend has requested permanent adjustment to your duties," she announced, consulting her ever-present tablet. "Effective immediately, your cleaning responsibilities will be limited to the music room and adjacent areas. Your primary focus will be Miss Lily's musical education, with expanded lessons 3 times weekly." The reassignment represented significant elevation from typical household staff status. "That's a substantial reduction in cleaning duties," Elena observed carefully. "Indeed, with corresponding adjustment to your compensation." Mrs. Reynolds named a figure that momentarily stole Elena's breath, an amount approaching what she'd earned with the symphony. "That's extremely generous," she managed, professional composure barely containing her shock. "Mr. Townsend values his daughter's education," the housekeeper replied with characteristic understatement. "And he's noted substantial improvement in her overall well-being since your lessons began." The observation aligned with Elena's own assessment. Lily had blossomed over recent weeks, her posture more confident, her conversation more animated, her emotional expression through music increasingly nuanced. Music was providing structure and creative outlet that transcended the limitations of her blindness. What surprised Elena was Maverick's apparent recognition of this transformation. During her first weeks of lessons, his presence had been minimal. Occasional observations from the doorway, brief interactions in passing. She had assumed his involvement in his daughter's education was primarily financial rather than emotional. This assumption proved incorrect during her 6th lesson with Lily, when their practice was interrupted by shouting from the main foyer. Male voices raised in confrontation that echoed through the mansion's marble corridors. Lily's hands faltered on the keyboard, her unseeing eyes widening with recognition. "That's my father," she whispered, tension immediately evident in her posture. "And Uncle Kane. They're fighting again." Elena moved instinctively to close the music room door, hoping to shield her student from the escalating conflict. Before she could reach it, the argument relocated, heavy footsteps approaching the music room with determined purpose. "This isn't club business, Kane." Maverick's voice carried clearly now. "It's family, separate categories." "Nothing's separate anymore," responded a second male voice, equally deep but edged with volatile energy that contrasted with Maverick's controlled anger. "Not with the Diamondbacks pushing into Henderson territory." The music room door swung open before Elena could intervene, revealing Maverick and a second man, similar in build but wilder in appearance, with a shaved head and tattoos extending up his neck to his jawline. Both wore their leather cuts, the black mountain insignia prominent against the worn leather. "Lessons over for today," Maverick announced, his tone brooking no argument, despite the relative gentleness directed toward Lily. "Uncle Kane and I need the room." "Dad, we're mid-composition analysis," Lily protested with unusual defiance. Elena was just explaining how Bach uses mathematical patterns to... Lily. The single word, not raised but carrying unmistakable authority, silenced her objection. "This is necessary. Miss Martinez will resume tomorrow." Elena gathered their materials with efficient movements, hyper-aware of Kane's evaluative gaze tracking her actions with predatory interest that contrasted sharply with Maverick's more clinical assessment. "Who's this?" Kane asked, making no effort to lower his voice despite Elena's obvious presence. "New staff doesn't usually get first-name status with the princess." "Elena's my piano teacher," Lily answered before her father could, protective instinct evident in her tone. "The best I've ever had." Kane's eyebrow raised, attention intensifying as he reassessed Elena with newfound interest. "Piano teacher? Didn't realize we were running a finishing school now." "Ms. Martinez," Maverick interjected, deliberately formal. "Please escort Lily to the solarium. Mrs. Reynolds will bring refreshments." The dismissal was clear. Elena placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder, guiding her toward the door with practiced movements that respected the girl's independence while providing necessary direction. As they passed Kane, his hand shot out, catching Elena's wrist in a grip just tight enough to stop her movement without causing pain. "Didn't catch your credentials, teacher," he said, the title carrying mocking emphasis. "Release her, Kane." Maverick's voice carried deadly quiet, a tone Elena hadn't heard from him before. "Now." The tension between the men crackled with dangerous undercurrents beyond simple disagreement. Kane maintained his hold for 3 more heartbeats, a deliberate challenge, before releasing Elena's wrist with exaggerated slowness. "Just getting acquainted with the staff," he said, stepping back with hands raised in mock surrender. No harm intended. "Ms. Martinez, Lily, please excuse us." Maverick's controlled expression revealed nothing of his thoughts, but the subtle positioning of his body, now between Kane and the women, spoke volumes about perceived threat assessment. In the solarium, after ensuring Lily was comfortably settled, Elena rubbed her wrist where Kane's fingers had pressed. No bruising, but the encounter had left her shaken in ways physical marks couldn't capture. "I'm sorry about Uncle Kane," Lily said quietly. "He's been different since the territory dispute started. Dad tries to keep club business separate from home, but lately—" "Club business?" Elena repeated, the euphemism for Hell's Angels activities momentarily breaking her professional reserve. "The Black Mountain chapter," Lily clarified, apparently assuming Elena understood. "Dad's been president since before I was born. Uncle Kane is his VP, but they disagree about approaches." The casual acknowledgement of her father's outlaw leadership, delivered as matter-of-factly as discussing a corporate position, highlighted the strange duality of Lily's existence. Raised in privilege within a mansion, whose foundations were built on activities Elena preferred not to contemplate. "Your father seems to maintain clear boundaries between those aspects of his life," Elena observed carefully. "He tries," Lily agreed, unseeing eyes directed toward the garden beyond the solarium windows. "For my sake. But lately those boundaries keep collapsing." Her fingers tapped an unconscious rhythm against her leg. Bach's time signature translated to nervous energy. "That's why the music matters so much now. It's the one place where everything makes sense." The confession, innocent yet profound, illuminated Elena's purpose beyond simple instruction. For Lily, music provided order amid chaos, beauty amid violence, control amid powerlessness. A sanctuary Elena recognized intimately from her own darkest days. That recognition created connection despite Elena's determination to maintain professional distance, a bond forming between damaged souls seeking healing through the same medium. What neither could have anticipated was how that bond would soon expand to include the unlikely third member of their triangle, a Hell's Angels president with his own carefully guarded wounds, an unexpected appreciation for the sanctuary they were creating. The solarium became their sanctuary after Kane's intrusion. Light-filled and removed from the mansion's main areas, it offered both privacy and exceptional acoustics when Elena arranged for a baby grand to be relocated there. Maverick approved the move without question, another indication of his commitment to Lily's musical development, despite escalating club tensions. Those tensions remained largely outside their musical sanctuary, though evidence occasionally penetrated even their carefully maintained boundaries. Increased security personnel patrolling the grounds, hushed conversations that ceased when staff approached, the growing frequency of motorcycles arriving at unusual hours, their owners gathering in Maverick's study behind closed doors, 6 weeks into their lessons. These background concerns crystallized into immediate reality when Elena arrived for Lily's morning session to find Mrs. Reynolds waiting with uncharacteristic tension evident in her normally impassive features. "Ms. Martinez," the housekeeper began, voice lowered despite the empty hallway. "Today's lesson must be abbreviated. Mr. Townsend requests your presence in his study afterward." Elena's stomach tightened. In all her weeks at the mansion, she had never been summoned to Maverick's private domain. the wood-paneled room where club business was conducted behind locked doors. "Is there a problem with my performance?" she asked, professional mask firmly in place. "Not with your teaching," Mrs. Reynolds replied cryptically. "That's all I'm authorized to say." The lesson proceeded with Elena struggling to maintain focus despite her apprehension. Lily, with her heightened sensitivity to emotional undercurrents, immediately detected the change. "Something's wrong," she observed during their first break. "Your timing is off, and you're breathing differently." Elena considered deflection, then opted for partial honesty. "Your father has requested a meeting after our lesson. I'm not sure why." Lily's expression shifted from concern to something more complex. "It's probably about the Henderson situation." "Henderson?" "The territory dispute I mentioned." Lily's fingers traced invisible patterns on the piano's edge, a self-soothing gesture Elena had noticed during discussions of her mother. "There was an incident last night. I overheard the security team talking about a warehouse." Before Elena could inquire further, the solarium door opened to reveal Mrs. Reynolds. "Miss Lily, your father asked me to remind you about your physical therapy appointment. Ms. Martinez, Mr. Townsend is ready for you now." The walk to Maverick's study felt interminable. Elena mentally reviewed her weeks of employment, searching for errors or transgressions that might have warranted formal discussion. Finding none, her thoughts turned to Kane's hostile interest during their brief encounter. Had he perhaps raised objections to her continued presence? These speculations dissolved when Mrs. Reynolds opened the study door to reveal not just Maverick, but 3 unfamiliar men in police uniforms. Their formal presence, starkly incongruous in the room dominated by Hell's Angels memorabilia and masculine luxury, sent ice through Elena's veins. Maverick stood behind his massive desk, his expression inscrutable as he gestured for Elena to enter. Unlike their previous interactions, today he wore neither business attire nor club leather, but instead an unsettling combination, dress shirt and tie paired with his cut, as if straddling both worlds simultaneously. "Ms. Martinez?" he began, formality underscoring the seriousness of the situation. "These officers have some questions about your whereabouts last night." The unexpected direction froze Elena mid-step. "My whereabouts?" The tallest officer, a captain by his insignia, consulted a small notebook. "Where were you between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m., Ms. Martinez?" "In my quarters," she replied automatically. "I retire at 10 and rise at 6 to accommodate my cleaning and teaching schedule." "Can anyone verify that?" the officer pressed. "I live alone in the staff wing," Elena explained, confusion mounting. "Mrs. Reynolds could confirm my return time, but after hours, I wouldn't have witnesses." The officers exchanged glances that sent alarm spiraling through her. Something significant had happened. Something connected to her in ways she couldn't fathom. "Ms. Martinez," the captain continued, "are you acquainted with Gabriel Suarez?" The name struck like physical impact, stealing her breath and buckling her knees. Elena reached blindly for support, finding the edge of Maverick's desk as the room tilted around her. "I see you recognize the name," the officer observed, watching her reaction with calculated interest. "Everyone in the regional music community knows Maestro Suarez," she managed, fighting for composure. "He conducts the symphony." "Conducted," the officer corrected coldly. "Gabriel Suarez was found dead this morning in a warehouse in Henderson. Murdered." The bald statement of fact, delivered without preparation or compassion, shattered what remained of Elena's composure. She gripped the desk edge, knuckles whitening as she processed the incomprehensible. Gabriel, brilliant, temperamental, ruthless in his pursuit of musical perfection. Dead. Murdered. "That's impossible," she whispered. "He was just conducting Rachmaninoff last weekend. I saw the reviews." "When did you last have contact with Maestro Suarez?" the captain continued, ignoring her distress. 2 years ago," Elena replied automatically. the truth emerging before she could consider implications. After the accident, he visited me in the hospital once. Just once? For his first chair pianist? The specific reference to her former position sent fresh alarm through Elena. These weren't random questions. The officers had investigated her background, knew her connection to Gabriel went beyond casual professional acquaintance. Our relationship ended when my performance career did, she stated carefully. He made it clear the symphony had no place for damaged goods. The harsh characterization, Gabriel's actual words during their final interaction, tasted bitter even now. His clinical assessment of her post-accident capabilities had destroyed whatever personal connection had existed between them, leaving only professional wreckage. Interesting, the captain noted, making a show of writing in his notebook. Because his personal calendar had your name scheduled for yesterday evening, a private meeting at the Henderson warehouse where his body was found. The room seemed to contract around Elena, air thinning as implications crystallized. That's not possible, she insisted. I haven't spoken to Gabriel in 2 years. I had no appointment with him. Yet your name appears in his calendar, the officer countered. And your former relationship provides compelling motive, given how he ended your career. He didn't end my career, Elena corrected automatically. The accident did. The accident impaired your hands. The captain agreed with unsettling familiarity with her medical history. But it was Maestro Suarez who ensured no other symphony would hire you afterward. His recommendation letters were quite comprehensive regarding your limitations. This revelation, that Gabriel had actively sabotaged her remaining options rather than simply declining to rehire her, landed like physical blow. Elena's vision tunneled briefly, past and present colliding with disorienting force. Throughout this exchange, Maverick had remained silent, his imposing presence almost forgotten as Elena grappled with cascading revelations. Now, finally, he intervened. I believe Ms. Martinez has answered your initial questions, Captain, he stated, his tone deceptively casual despite the authority it carried. If you have accusations to make them formally through proper channels. Otherwise, this interview is concluded. The captain's expression hardened at Maverick's interference. Mr. Townsend, this is a murder investigation. Your hospitality doesn't override proper procedure. Nor does your badge override basic rights, Maverick countered smoothly. Ms. Martinez has provided her alibi. She's answered your questions without counsel present. Unless you're prepared to make an arrest, I suggest you pursue other avenues of investigation. The standoff between them crackled with unspoken subtext. Law enforcement versus outlaw, each operating with different definitions of authority. After several tense seconds, the captain closed his notebook with deliberate slowness. We'll continue this discussion later, Ms. Martinez, he said, the promise carrying unmistakable threat. Mr. Townsend can't shield you indefinitely. Only after the officers departed did Elena realize she was trembling. The convergence of past and present, Gabriel's death, the revelation of his betrayal, the inexplicable connection to a warehouse in Henderson, overwhelmed her carefully maintained compartmentalization. Sit, Maverick instructed, his tone gentler than his words, as he guided her to a leather chair. Breathe. Elena complied automatically, professional composure shattered by circumstances beyond her control. Only when her breathing steadied did he speak again, his question cutting straight to the heart of the matter with characteristic directness. Did you kill Gabriel Suarez? Entendido? Vou continuar com o ato quarter entre 901 palavras. Actor. The fall. No! The denial burst from Elena with visceral force. How could you even ask that? Because the police clearly believe you did, Maverick replied, his tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. Your name in his calendar, your history with the man, your lack of verifiable alibi. They'll be back with a warrant. The clinical assessment of her situation, delivered without emotional inflection, somehow steadied Elena more than comfort would have. Reality, however harsh, provided solid ground beneath the quicksand of shock. "I didn't kill him," she repeated, calmer now. "I didn't even know he was in Henderson. I haven't spoken to Gabriel since the hospital." Maverick studied her with the penetrating gaze that seemed to catalog every micro-expression, every nuance of body language. Whatever he observed appeared to satisfy some internal metric. "I believe you," he said finally. The simple declaration, unexpected from a man whose reputation suggested minimal concern for justice, momentarily silenced Elena. Before she could respond, he continued with characteristic efficiency. "But belief doesn't matter. Evidence does. The police will build their case around opportunity and motive." He moved to a sideboard, pouring amber liquid into crystal glasses. "You had both." "I was here all night," she protested, accepting the offered drink without consideration. "With no witnesses," he reminded her. "And significant motive, given what the conductor did to your career." The reminder of Gabriel's betrayal rekindled embers of anger Elena had thought long extinguished. "I didn't know he'd blacklisted me. Not until today." "Would it have changed anything if you had known?" Maverick asked, watching her reaction with unsettling intensity. Elena considered the question honestly. Examining the person she had been 2 years ago, devastated by physical injury and professional abandonment, rebuilt through painful reinvention. "I would have confronted him," she admitted. "Demanded explanation, but not violence. The police won't make that distinction." Maverick settled into the chair opposite her, his imposing frame somehow contained within the expensive leather. "They need a clean resolution. You provide that." Fear crystallized in Elena's chest, reality solidifying around her. "They're going to arrest me, aren't they?" "Probably. Within 48 hours. His bluntness carried no cruelty, just tactical assessment. "Unless alternative evidence emerges." "What kind of evidence?" "The exonerating kind." His expression remained unreadable. "Or the kind that directs attention elsewhere." Understanding dawned gradually through Elena's shock. "You know something about Gabriel's murder." It wasn't a question, but Maverick answered anyway. "The warehouse where Suarez died belongs to a shell corporation controlled by the Diamondbacks MC. Our rivals," he clarified, though Elena had already made the connection to Lily's earlier comments. "Why would Gabriel be meeting in a gang-controlled warehouse?" she asked, struggling to reconcile the fastidious conductor with such surroundings. "That's the interesting question," Maverick agreed. "One the police seem uninterested in exploring, given their focus on you." The implications hung between them. Corruption or tunnel vision, either equally dangerous to Elena's future. Silence stretched as she processed the converging circumstances, threatening to destroy her carefully rebuilt life. "What happens now?" she finally asked, the question encompassing her immediate future and Maverick's unexpected involvement in her predicament. "Now you have choices," he replied. "None ideal, but choices nonetheless. Such as, stay and face their investigation. Retain counsel. I have recommendations. Fight through legal channels." He delivered the first option with neutral assessment. "Probability of success depends on evidence not currently in our possession." "Or," Elena prompted when he paused, "or leave, tonight. New identity, new location. Resources provided." The alternative emerged with equal neutrality, as if offering standard business options rather than life-altering decisions. "You're suggesting I run," she translated, disbelief momentarily overriding fear. "Become a fugitive." "I'm suggesting tactical retreat until the actual perpetrator is identified," Maverick corrected. "Temporary displacement, not permanent escape." The clinical terminology couldn't disguise the fundamental nature of his proposal. Abandoning her identity, her position, her carefully reconstructed life. Yet the alternative, arrest, trial, potential conviction for a murder she didn't commit, offered no better prospects. "Why would you help me?" Elena asked, the question that had simmered beneath the surface of their conversation. "You barely know me." Something shifted in Maverick's expression, a brief crack in the composed exterior that revealed complexity beneath. "Lily trusts you," he said simply. "Her judgment in people has proven reliable." The explanation, while logical, felt incomplete. "And that's worth risking involvement in a murder investigation?" "My involvement exists regardless," he replied with surprising candor. "The Diamondback's warehouse creates automatic connection. Better to control the narrative than react to it." The pragmatic assessment aligned with what Elena had observed of Maverick's strategic thinking, yet still didn't fully explain his willingness to assist someone who was, fundamentally, just an employee. Before she could press further, the study door opened without warning. Kane strode in, his aggressive energy filling the space as he surveyed the scene. Elena and Maverick in private conversation, drinks in hand, unexpected intimacy in their body language. "Interrupting something?" Kane asked, sarcasm evident beneath forced casualness. "Business discussion," Maverick replied, his tone cooling noticeably. "What do you need?" "Kane?" "Thought you'd want to know. Henderson PD just issued a warrant." Kane's gaze shifted to Elena, something predatory in his assessment. "For the piano teacher." The confirmation of Maverick's prediction sent fresh adrenaline coursing through Elena. Kane's evident satisfaction at delivering the news suggested complex undercurrents beyond simple law enforcement developments. "How do you have this information?" Maverick asked, his voice controlled despite the tension evident in his posture. "Reynolds has a nephew in dispatch," Kane explained with a shrug. "Heard them processing paperwork. They'll be here within the hour." Time collapsed around Elena, options narrowing with each passing minute. Arrest, investigation, conviction for a crime she didn't commit. Everything she'd built after the accident, modest but hard-won, crumbling under circumstances beyond her control. "I need to go," she said, decision crystallizing through necessity rather than choice. "I can't be here when they arrive." Kane's eyebrow raised, attention shifting between her and Maverick with renewed interest. "Going somewhere, teacher? Guilty conscience?" "That's enough, Kane," Maverick interrupted, authority evident in each syllable. "Ms. Martinez's legal situation isn't club business." "Isn't it?" Kane challenged, unusual defiance suggesting shifting power dynamics Elena hadn't previously detected. "Diamondback's territory. Henderson warehouse. Conductor with connections to our piano teacher. Seems like club business bleeding into your private sanctuary." The accusation hung between the men, layered with meanings Elena could sense, but not fully decode. Something fundamental was fracturing between club president and vice president. Fault lines exposed by her presence and Gabriel's murder. "Leave us," Maverick ordered, no room for negotiation in his tone. "I'll handle Ms. Martinez's situation." For a moment, Kane seemed poised to refuse, a challenge that would have significant implications within their organizational hierarchy. Finally, he stepped back with exaggerated deference. "Whatever you say, President." The title carried mocking emphasis. "Just remember, club votes on sanctuary requests. Unanimous approval required. Constitution's clear on that." After Kane departed, the atmosphere in the study remained charged with unresolved tension. Elena found herself adrift in currents she couldn't navigate. Club politics, murder investigations, and her own desperate circumstances converging into perfect storm. "What did he mean about sanctuary requests?" she asked, focusing on the immediate rather than overwhelming whole. "Club protocol," Maverick explained briefly. "Not relevant to your current options." But his expression suggested otherwise, calculations occurring behind carefully maintained composure, alternative strategies being evaluated and discarded with rapid precision. 1 hour, he reminded her, returning to immediate practicalities. Decision time. Aqui está o ato finto entre 900,000 palavras. ACTV, the choice. I need to see Lily first, Elena said, the imperative crystallizing through her chaos of emotions. I can't just disappear without explanation. Maverick's expression suggested he'd anticipated this request. 5 minutes, in the solarium. Then we implement whichever exit strategy you choose. The plural we registered dimly through Elena's shock, a continued offer of assistance she hadn't fully processed. Before she could question his involvement, Mrs. Reynolds appeared at the study door, her typically impassive features tight with concern. Mr. Townsend, there's a situation with Miss Lily. She's refusing her physical therapy and demanding to see Ms. Martinez. Shared alarm propelled them toward the solarium, where they found Lily seated rigidly at the piano, fingers pressed against silent keys, unseeing eyes fixed toward the garden windows. Lily, Elena approached gently, professional composure masking her internal turmoil. I understand therapy's been canceled. They're saying you killed someone, Lily responded immediately, turning her head with unerring accuracy toward Elena's voice. The security team is talking about police and warrants. Dad's men are preparing motorcycles in the garage. The accuracy of her information, gathered through extraordinary hearing and careful attention, reminded Elena that Lily's blindness had sharpened her other perceptual abilities to remarkable levels. There's been a misunderstanding, Elena replied carefully, choosing honesty within limits. My former conductor was killed, and the police have questions because of our professional history. Are you leaving? Direct, unembellished, cutting straight to Lily's primary concern. Elena hesitated, looking to Maverick, who stood silently in the doorway. His slight nod granted permission for truthfulness. Yes, she admitted, temporarily, until this situation resolves. Lily's composure fractured, vulnerability breaking through her usually controlled exterior. Everyone leaves, she whispered, fingers pressing harder against silent keys. Mom, 4 different tutors, now you. The pain in her voice, raw and unfiltered, struck Elena deeply. Their connection had grown beyond teacher-student into something more fundamental, a bridge between isolated souls finding resonance through music. This isn't abandonment, Elena said, taking Lily's hands from the keyboard and holding them in her own. This is protection, for both of us. How long? I don't know, Elena answered honestly, but I promise to continue your education somehow. The progress we've made is too important to lose. Lily's fingers tightened around hers with surprising strength. I have something for you. She reached into her sweater pocket, withdrawing a small velvet pouch. I asked Dad to find this after our first lesson. I was waiting for the right moment. Inside the pouch, Elena found a delicate silver chain bearing a small treble clef pendant, identical to one Catherine Townsend wore in the portrait hanging in the music room. Mom's, Lily confirmed, sensing Elena's recognition. She always said music creates bridges where none should exist. Between people, between worlds. The gift's significance, a piece of Lily's most precious connection shared with Elena, momentarily overwhelmed her careful composure. I can't accept this. You already have, Lily countered with unexpected firmness, by teaching me, by making music matter again in this house. Her hand found Elena's cheek with unerring accuracy. Come back when you can. I'll keep practicing. The moment crystallized something Elena had been avoiding acknowledging. Her attachment to this strange household had grown beyond professional boundaries. Lily's musical development, the sanctuary they'd created in the solarium, even Maverick's complicated presence in their unconventional triangle, all now threatened by Gabriel's murder and her unwitting connection to it. It's time, Maverick said from the doorway, his tone gentle but firm. Security reports vehicles approaching the main gate. Elena embraced Lily briefly before following Maverick through the mansion's service corridors toward the garage. There, she found not police preparation, but motorcycle readiness. 3 bikes with engines running, riders in full club regalia waiting with military discipline. "What is this?" she asked, momentary confusion overriding her fear. "Escort," Maverick explained briefly. Kane was right about one thing. Sanctuary protocol requires full club approval. His expression revealed rare frustration. "We don't have time for formal vote." Understanding dawned gradually. "You're breaking club rules. For me." "For Lily," he corrected, though something in his expression suggested more complex motivations. "She needs stability, consistency. You provide both through music." Before Elena could process this explanation, the garage door opened to reveal Kane, flanked by 4 club members, an opposing faction materializing with unmistakable challenge. "Going somewhere, Mav?" Kane asked, artificial casualness barely concealing hostile intent. "With club resources? Without club vote?" The confrontation represented more than immediate circumstance. Long, simmering leadership tensions crystallizing around Elena's predicament. Maverick's rigid posture confirmed the significance of this challenge. "Stand down, Kane," he ordered, authority evident in each syllable. "This isn't club business. The moment you involved our brothers, our bikes, our resources, you made it club business." Kane's gaze shifted to Elena with predatory assessment. "Constitution's clear. Protecting outsiders requires unanimous approval." "We don't have time for this," Maverick countered, frustration breaking through his usual control. "Police are at the gate. 3 minutes, maybe less." "Plenty of time to surrender her," Kane suggested with casual cruelty. Clean break. No club involvement in a murder investigation. The standoff crackled with dangerous undercurrents. Not just immediate circumstances, but fundamental power struggle within the club hierarchy. Elena felt caught in currents beyond her navigation, her fate determined by outlaw politics she couldn't influence. Maverick's hand moved subtly toward his waistband, a gesture Kane mirrored with alarming synchronicity. The prospect of violence erupted between them, brotherhood fracturing under opposing priorities. "Stop!" Elena's voice cut through the tension, decision crystallizing through necessity rather than choice. "I'll surrender myself. No one needs to fight over this." Both men turned toward her with matching surprise, momentarily united in their reaction to her intervention. "They'll railroad you," Maverick stated flatly. "Evidence is circumstantial but compelling." "Maybe," she acknowledged. "But I won't be responsible for club conflict or broken rules." Kane's expression shifted from hostility to something more calculating. "Principled for a murder suspect?" he observed. "Interesting." "I didn't kill Gabriel," Elena stated firmly, certainty providing unexpected strength. "And I won't let anyone else suffer consequences for crimes neither of us committed." The quiet declaration hung between them, its sincerity momentarily silencing even Kane's antagonism. In that suspended moment of decision, distant sirens penetrated the garage's concrete walls, police approaching with inexorable purpose. Choice time had expired. Consequence time had arrived. 6 months after Gabriel Suarez's murder, Elena Martinez sat at the grand piano in the Townsend Mansion's solarium, afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows as her student performed Bach's 2-part invention No. D-Late with newfound emotional maturity. "Your interpretation has evolved," Elena observed as Lily concluded the piece. "The mathematical structure remains precise, but you've found the humanity within it." Lily smiled, the expression lighting her unseeing eyes. "I had excellent guidance, even from a distance." The digital lessons conducted during Elena's 3-month incarceration had indeed bridged their separation, Maverick arranging secure tablet access through channels Elena preferred not to examine too closely. Technology couldn't replicate in-person instruction, but their musical connection had transcended physical constraints. "Your bail hearing testimony changed everything," Elena acknowledged. the pendant Lily had given her catching light as she shifted on the bench. I would likely still be awaiting trial otherwise. The memory remained vivid. Lily on the witness stand, testifying to Elena's presence in the mansion the night of Gabriel's murder. Her account of hearing Elena playing softly in the staff quarters after midnight, brought to the judge's attention by Elena's defense attorney, but conspicuously absent from police interviews. Whether Lily had actually heard her playing or constructed the alibi from loyalty remained unspoken between them. The testimony, combined with subsequently discovered evidence linking the Diamondbacks to Gabriel's financial irregularities, had eventually led to Elena's exoneration and another man's arrest. Dad says the police commissioner is being investigated for improper influence, Lily mentioned, fingers idly tracing the keyboard's edge. Something about Diamondback connections. Justice works in unexpected ways sometimes, Elena replied carefully, still navigating the complex ethics of her situation and its resolution. The solarium door opened to reveal Maverick. Today in business attire rather than club leather, the duality of his existence maintained through careful separation. His relationship with Elena remained similarly compartmentalized. Professional respect with undercurrents neither had chosen to examine directly since her return to teaching duties. "Lesson going well?" he asked, the question's superficial cover for his regular observation of their sessions. "Extremely," Elena confirmed. "Lily's interpretation has matured significantly. We're discussing conservatory applications for next fall. The shared project, preparing Lily for education beyond the isolated mansion, had provided neutral ground for their complicated triangle to stabilize after the turbulence of the murder investigation. Kane's faction within the club had been neutralized through evidence of Diamondback collusion, restoring Maverick's unquestioned leadership while establishing Elena's protection as legitimate club business. "I'll leave you to it," Maverick said, turning to depart with characteristic efficiency. "Actually," Elena called after him, decision crystallizing after months of consideration. "I was hoping you might stay. There's a Rachmaninoff piece Lily's working on, for 2 pianos. We could use a third perspective." The invitation, crossing carefully maintained boundaries between teacher and employer, hung between them, weighted with potential meanings. Lily's smile widened at the suggestion, her perceptiveness detecting undercurrents even Elena wasn't ready to fully acknowledge. Maverick hesitated briefly before nodding once. "I'd like that." As the three converged around the paired pianos, blind student, disgraced pianist, and outlaw leader, Catherine Townsend's words echoed in the sunlit room. "Music creates bridges where none should exist. Between people, between worlds. Some bridges, once built, can never truly be dismantled."